Good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news. Coming up, Sean Davis from The Federalist joins us at 3:30. We'll talk about the Biden administration's latest Russia stunt in these final 60 days now heading into the election. Sean has a lot to say on that subject. Susan Crabtree is here at 4:30 from Real Clear Politics. She's been digging in on all of the Secret Service scandals, and she has a new update on how they're spending your money. Hint, it involves Disney World. And David Strom is here from Hot Air at 5 o'clock. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Hey, Secret Service, you just fleeced the American people. What are you going to do next? I'm going to Disney World. Yeah. It's great. It's great. Yes, the number 888-630-9625. Hunter Biden, the man who did nothing wrong, back in court today. It's supposed to be jury selection. It's a jury selection beginning in his tax fraud case. And his lawyer, Abby Lowell, arrived today with a surprise. Hey, we'd like to enter a plea. Here's CNN trying to give you some of the details earlier.
All right, there's breaking news coming into CNN right now. Hunter Biden is offering to plead to avoid a trial in his federal tax evasion case out in California. CNN's Evan Perez is joining us live outside the courthouse in Los Angeles. Evan, tell us about what's going on.
Well, Wolf, court just got underway about 15 minutes ago here in downtown Los Angeles, and Hunter Biden's attorneys have stood up in court and said that he's offering to resolve this case, avoid going to trial. The trial is supposed to start with jury selection today, Wolf, but he's offering to enter a plea, what's known as an Alford Plea, where he maintains his innocence, but essentially puts himself at the mercy of the court and accept whatever sentence, whatever punishment the judge in this case deals out. And so we don't know, obviously, how this will happen or how this will turn out in court right now. Generally,
an Alford plea. Now, you're seeing some headlines that he's going to submit a guilty plea. That's some of the claims that are rocketing around in the media right now. But it turns out it's not quite so simple as that, there would be a guilty plea. And who knows exactly what's going to finally happen here. We're awaiting a court getting back underway so that they can try and resolve some of this. But it's an Alford plea. And as you heard the CNN guy just say, what that means is he's going to maintain that he's innocent, but essentially say, I accept that the evidence suggests I'm guilty. I'll accept the conviction. You go ahead and sentence me, but I'm going to maintain my innocence. I'm innocent. It's an Alford plea, named after a Supreme Court case by the same name, North Carolina v. Alford. So from 1970. So that's the idea. And when I first heard this, I was like, well, doesn't that sound like no contest? Where you're saying, oh, I don't contest the evidence, but I'm not going to say one way or the other if I'm guilty or innocent. Yeah, that's the difference. A no contest plea would be that you're not going to say you're guilty. You're not going to say you're innocent. You're just going to accept that, okay, I'll just take whatever the prosecution says it is. But no, this is an Alford plea. That's apparently the difference. So they go forward with this. Abby Lowell says they want an Alford plea here. To maintain his innocence, but to accept the consequences in light of the fact that they're pretty convinced that the court's going to find him guilty anyway. And the feds here are saying, no deal. The prosecutors from the Weiss team are saying that they're objecting to this Alford plea. Prosecutor Leo Wise told the judge today that Abby Lowell's comments in court were the first time that he even learned about a potential plea change. Lowell also said that there, quote, has not been an agreement between the parties. I'm citing CNN's reporting here. Like a plea agreement in which Biden would plead guilty to some charges in exchange for other charges being dropped. The only offer that Hunter's team ever got from prosecutors, Lowell said, was for him to plead guilty to all 9 counts. The potential resolution of the tax case comes on the brink of a trial in downtown Los Angeles. This would have been Biden's second criminal trial this year. CNN's already writing about it in the past tense. It's not actually over yet. After he was convicted in June on 3 federal gun charges in Wilmington, Delaware. Just to reiterate, Joe Biden, of course, said, my son has done nothing wrong. My son He's done nothing wrong. He just keeps being found guilty by a variety of juries across the country. Biden was charged with 9 tax crimes, that is Hunter, including 3 felony charges. Prosecutors allege that Hunter failed to pay $1.4 million in federal taxes and evaded taxes by filing tax returns with fraudulent business deductions. They also allege that he was using his money on luxury cars, extravagant hotels, sex workers, instead of paying taxes when they were due. He's done nothing wrong. It's just, just using stolen cash on luxury cars and extravagant hotels and sex workers. Other than that, and the gun thing, other than that, he's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing wrong. So it does seem kind of predictable where this all goes, doesn't it? Like, regardless of how this dispute today is resolved, maybe the judge, and I see the media is pointing out, he was a Trump-appointed judge, so we'll see if he accepts this. And apparently the Justice Department genuinely needs to. I'm seeing some lawyers point out that, an Alford plea is something that the prosecutors would need to agree to. Whatever. However this ends up, you and I both know that Joe Biden pardons this kid, right? I say kid. He's a fully grown adult male who's had a lot of time exploiting his father's position in government to enrich himself and his family. He's going to pardon him. He's going to pardon him here. And if the Alford plea gets accepted, they don't even have to do a pardon. They can just do a commutation. You don't have to serve out the sentence, and you've maintained your innocence. It's as good as a pardon. It's as good as a pardon. He says he's innocent, no consequences. Let's move on. Now, the White House today, by way of Karine Jean-Pierre Caringe, is claiming, oh, no, it still stands. No pardon, no commutation. Horse hockey. There's no way that's true. There's no way that's true. What they're waiting for is Election Day. Now, that's a gamble for Hunter Biden because, Joe, it does not exactly look like he's in perfect health. We have 60 days. So Hunter's banking on the next 60 days being healthy enough that a pardon can take place on day 61. That's what he's banking on. But they want to wait till the election's over. And then, like the Clintons, Bill Clinton pardoning his brother, they'll just do it as soon as the coast is clear. And there's a couple reasons why they might want to avoid a trial now. Why are they surprising the Justice Department, assuming the Justice Department is in any way genuinely surprised today? Why are they doing that? Well, one piece of this is they're trying to save themselves some cash. Why waste money on a trial? Why keep dumping money into Abby Lowell's pockets if you could just enter a plea, get this thing over with? Joe's going to pardon him anyway. Let's just save some cash for the Bidens, as if they don't have enough. Another piece here is, despite the fact that the media has tried to create this hilarious separation between Kamala and Joe, the last thing the left wants is for Hunter Biden's tax trial to dominate any number of the headlines, including if it's on page 10. They don't want Hunter Biden stories at all. The last thing they want is an examination of especially Hunter Biden's finances playing out in a courtroom. Looking at every receipt, looking at every dollar that was coming in. Why were you getting paid for this? Why were you keeping this money from the government? Why weren't you paying your taxes? And one answer is just that, well, you're trying to keep as much money as you can. You want to avoid paying the government. Okay, there's that. But also, when you're avoiding paying the government, in Hunter Biden's case, part of the reason you do that is because you're trying to hide the way you were making the money in the first place. You don't want a fulsome examination of that. You don't want the public to be rooting through how you made money. What service did you provide, Hunter? What were people paying you for? Why was all this money flowing to you, especially from these foreign countries? Why was that happening? That's the last conversation they need to have. So today, a plea of some kind by Hunter Biden saying, look, I don't want this trial to continue. As of now, the judge was saying that he really doesn't want to debate the plea in the courtroom. They're going to try and continue the jury selection. That's what some of the news coverage is pointing to. And all of the updates on this story are that we will soon get an update on what's happening there with the Biden family. But it's what it is just this is corruption, and we're seeing it play out. And Hunter Biden, who thought he was going to get away with it, the Justice Department had an entire plea deal arranged to prevent any of this from going forward. And it was only because of the excellent objective judgment of Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, who looks at all of this and goes, wait a second. This is a disaster. We're going to give you immunity to literally everything? Does that include if you get FARA violations, which are back in the news, of course, today in the last 24 hours? The Justice Department not going after Hunter for foreign agent violations, which of course they should, but going after. They're saying that it's the right that is been overtaken by foreign agent crimes, and there they go again. The right colluding with Russia to try to steal the election. That's the Justice Department yesterday. We're going to talk to Sean Davis about this in detail coming up, about how hysterical this is, meaning both over the top and really funny. It's crazy what's coming out of the United States Department of Justice. And those court filings yesterday, I kind of scratched the surface. I realized after our program yesterday, I scratched the surface on some of the details in the indictment. I had pointed you to the fact that they were saying, the Russians had set up an account called CNN California with only 7 followers, and they were going to steal the election with this CNN California account, which is so absurd. Well, the other piece of this is that the feds are alleging that there were a number of popular podcasters in the United States who have conservative audiences. Note the phrasing I'm using. Not all of these guys are actually conservative. They have differing views on all sorts of things. The list I'm seeing of these guys, Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, the feds are saying that they're all unwitting recipients of Russian money. That's what they're saying. And even in their own indictments, they're saying that these guys had no idea where this money was coming from. But it's meant to diminish them. It's meant to take popular shows and say that you shouldn't take seriously the words coming out of their mouths because they're on the take, whether they know where the money's coming from or not. And it's meant to leave the impression that they're distorting what they're saying on behalf of a foreign interest. And just to be clear, the indictment offers no evidence for that. The indictment doesn't even offer any content evidence of any meaning whatsoever. Because if you were reading this as a news consumer, as the kind of person who cares about the country, you go, okay, so you're presenting your case. You say that these guys are corrupt. What did they deliver that was corrupt? What was the corrupt delivery item? The Justice Department never bothers to tell you that. In fact, I went and I checked out the overarching company that was apparently receiving this money, according to the Justice Department. It's called Tenet Media. It's a relatively new company started by a Canadian girl. And some of these American podcasters were under that umbrella. They were getting some money from Tenet Media to produce content for Tenet Media. And I went and checked their YouTube page because the inside of the indictment, the feds put out, they said, yes, Tenet Media, it produced, they don't say the name of the company, but it's super obvious because they leave all the breadcrumbs. They're like, literally they use phrases from the company's website. You just Google them and boom, you find the website in a heartbeat. It's not like they're really protecting the identity of the company. It's Tenet Media. And you go to their YouTube page, and in the indictment, they say, taking all this Russian money, they produced 2,000 videos. 2,000 videos, which netted 16 million views. I'm sorry. And they made it seem like it's a huge deal. More than 16 million views. Let me tell you something. As somebody who's been in the content production space for now a long time, the idea that what is the number they're telling us? The Russians dumped $10 million into a project that netted only 16 million views over the course of 2,000 videos. This is the crappiest Russian disinformation operation I've ever heard of. I'm telling you, when I say zero impact, I mean nothing. Nothing. And then you actually look at the videos. I was like, okay, well, let me see the videos. Let me look at the actual content. What were the deliverables? Are they doing videos on how great Putin is? Are they telling you that Vladimir Putin is totally righteous, he's a great man, and everybody should be like Putin? It's nothing like that. In fact, almost every single video has nothing to do with Russia. Almost every single one. They're all random videos just about the kind of thing that you and I talk about on a daily basis, that conservatives talk about frequently. Whether it's forced COVID jabs or Anthony Fauci being a psychopath or whatever it is, that's what the videos are. It's almost every one of them. And the sole exception, not the sole, but there are a couple of exceptions, to the extent that Russia's even mentioned. I saw one video. It was Victoria Nuland, a Biden administration official. It was just a short video of her, literally nothing else in the video. No other production. It's just her speaking to an ABC News camera saying we need to bomb Russia. That's it. You didn't pull that clip, did you? Oh, wait, you did pull that clip for me? Listen to this. This is the only thing I could find on the Tenet Media YouTube channel that sounded like anything like the kind of thing that Russia may want to share, just to say, look how crazy Americans are being. They want to strike inside Russia.
They need to be able to stop these Russian attacks that are coming from bases inside Russia. So I think there's also a question of whether we, the United States and our allies, ought to give them more help in hitting Russian bases, which heretofore we've not been willing to do. I think if the attacks are coming directly from over the line in Russia, that those bases ought to be fair game, whether they are where missiles are being launched from or where they are where troops are being supplied from. I think it's time for that because Russia has obviously escalated this war, including, as you said at the beginning, attacking Russia's second city, Kharkiv, which is not on the front lines, and trying to decimate it without ever having to put a boot on the ground. So I think it is time to give the Ukrainians more help hitting these bases inside Russia.
So some chunky Biden official is saying that we need to attack Russia. That's what now we need to take it to the next level, attack Russia. That's the whole video. They didn't dress it up. They just put a video up on the internet on this channel. Are you telling? This is so, and nobody looks at this channel. Nobody even looks at it. So once again, why are they doing this? Why do they have an entire press conference dedicated to it? Why do they bring out every top Justice Department official? Why are they all tugging on their chins and talking about how awful this is and how Russia's interfering in our election? It's because you're being had. It's a scam, is what it is. They want to censor speech in the country. They want to interfere in the election. And they're doing it 2 months to Election Day. It's as predictable as the sunrise because they keep doing it with every passing election cycle. And all I'm telling you is, don't fall for this crap. Also, if this whole thing tells us anything, it's that the Russians are comically bad at interfering in our elections. You know who's good at it? Our own government. They're really good at it. And they do it a lot. Oh, the Hunter Biden laptop? Totally fake. That's Russian disinformation. No, it wasn't. That was an American disinformation operation run by the United States government, run by the U.S. intel community, designed to deprive voters of knowledge going into an essential election. You want to talk about corrupt? You want to talk about people who should be charged with crimes? There's at least a list of 51 of them who you should consider. It's wild to hear this yesterday. And I guess the Justice Department was asked yesterday during this press conference, like, why should people believe you? Like, that's not the way the question was asked. It was like, there's a subsection of the country, when they hear Russia, they don't think it's real. What do you say? And Merrick Garland tried to just laugh it off, just waved it off. We think it's very serious. Yeah, right. Coming up next, Sean Davis from The Federalist. He's seen enough of this crap, too. He'll respond, tell us what he thinks of all of this, as once again, a new Russia collusion hoax rears its head now just 60 days ahead of Election Day. Stay with us here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Well, good afternoon to you. Always so good to be with you. It's 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up an hour from now, Susan Crabtree from Real Clear Politics. We'll get the latest Secret Service headlines from her. A lot of scandals over there that she's uncovering, making not so secret. And then David Strum will be here from Hot Air at 5 o'clock. You can talk to us at 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. The United States Department of Justice brought out all of its top officials yesterday to declare that once again Russia is interfering in our election, trying to steal it on behalf of Donald Trump. They made clear in their court filings. What's going on here? Sean Davis joins us now. He's the CEO and co-founder of The Federalist. Fantastic site. And he's on the phone. Hello, Sean. Good to talk to you, sir.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So anytime I see the words Russia and we're within 60 days of an election, I instantly think this is garbage. What do you think?
Well, you are a wise man indeed, because it is garbage. In the surest sign you know that Democrats are losing is when they have to shout, Russia! Mm-hmm. Russia, Russia, Russia. It's their go-to play Anytime they're losing, they trot it out. They try to pretend that the worst governments meddling in our election are in Beijing or Moscow or Tehran, when the truth of the matter is that the regime most to the American people and stealing elections and rigging elections and interfering is the U.S. government in Washington, D.C.
Yes, for sure. They've been way more effective at meddling in our elections than the Russians spending, according to this indictment from yesterday. So the Russians, if I'm to believe it, they spent $10 million, and that money was funneled to a variety of podcasters who had no idea where the money was actually coming from. And the podcasters produced 2,000 videos, most of which have nothing to do with Russia. And all of those videos created just 16 million total views. This is nothing. This is breaking wind in a hurricane. This has no influence whatsoever. What am I missing?
You're not missing anything. It is. It's a fart in the wind. And what I find really interesting is if you actually look at their accusations and you look at some of the people involved, namely running this corporation called Tenet Media or whatever, the people running that, if you look at their rhetoric, it was not pro-Trump rhetoric. In fact, a lot of it looked like it was designed to peel people on the right away from Trump, which is why I found it so interesting today when Vladimir Putin, who had previously said he wanted Biden to win for obvious reasons, Biden's been wonderful for Putin in Russia, he said either last night or this morning, no, he wants Harris to win. And when you look at the rhetoric these people were using, that actually matches. This wasn't done for Trump. This wasn't done to help Trump. If anything, it was being done to hurt him, which is why the coverage of it has been so insane.
Yeah. Yeah, but as I was reading through the indictment, I saw that clip too, and I was laughing out loud as I saw that. As Putin says he wants Kamala Harris to win the election, and the left is insisting that he's just trying to. It's reverse psychology. Okay, whatever. But in the indictment from the Justice Department, they kind of go out of their way to say that there's only one political party. This is in their affidavits. There's only one political party that is skeptical of the U.S.'s involvement in Ukraine. And we should try and make more content that reaches out to them. What? Okay, so the Russians like that some Americans have this opinion. I'm wondering, does that mean I'm not allowed to have that opinion? Because scrutinizing our Ukraine spending, that seems like a very legitimate American opinion to have.
Well, and you actually got to the root of the problem here. And the root is not some stupid foreign government creating Facebook ads or dumb videos that no one watches. The root problem here is that our own government, which is supposed to represent us and protect our rights under the Constitution, is trying to make illegal, is trying to make look nefarious any opinions that they don't like. So if you're an American who's like, you know what, our cities are crumbling, crime's insane, our border is awful, everything's expensive, maybe we shouldn't be spending $1 trillion in a foreign country, the idea that that would somehow make you a foreign asset is completely insane. That belief is actually treasonous, which is the idea that your opinions make you a criminal. It is so un-American that I am shocked at the number of people that are just buying into the DOJ propaganda.
Yes.
Because what we have is our own government trying to criminalize our own beliefs and opinions, which are completely proper, in many cases very true, and obviously the optimal opinions, and yet our government is trying to shut us down and turn us into criminals because of what we believe.
Also, there's something very seedy about the government trying to prosecute any expression of speech. I happen to believe that foreign governments, foreign nationals, they should be allowed to say whatever they want, and we should be able to allowed to respond in kind. When I think of foreign agent violations, what I'm most concerned about is the guys who have proximity to power. If you're working on behalf of China and you own a politician and you're advancing the interests of the commies in China, that sounds like a foreign agent who's doing something nefarious. You know, we've got foreign agents for China inside of the New York governor's office who just got busted. Hunter Biden has been taking money from China and from Ukraine and from the wife of the mayor of Moscow in order to get his father to conduct U.S. policy to their favor. And we're supposed to believe that people who are expressing opinions they already had is actually the scandal?
Exactly. And it would be a totally different ballgame if all of these, unregistered foreign agency jobs were being prosecuted evenly. If they had gone after Tony Podesta with the same verve and vim and vigor that they used to go after Paul Manafort. but they don't. These are obviously political prosecutions that they bring about at key times in elections when they need to turn a narrative. It's not something they evenly prosecute. And once you see a law that's only used as a weapon against one side at particular times for clearly political benefit, you start asking questions like, is this really about the law, or is this just you trying to create a story out of nothing because you don't like where the political winds are blowing? So that is not American. It's un-American.
So an analog to this is what happened in the 2020 election. The government comes out and says the Russians are interfering in our election. In fact, the Hunter Biden laptop story itself is Russian disinformation. 51 intel officials, current and former people, get together and they tell us that it's all Russian disinformation. And that's used as a predicate by the legacy media and the social media firms to shut down anyone who would declare that as their own opinion. That actually, I think the Hunter Biden laptop is real. Boom, that story gets shut down. New York Post links. Boom, that story gets shut down. To what extent is this the opening salvo in an effort to do the same thing in this election?
Oh, I assume it's absolutely the opening salvo. I've been joking on X that I don't know if this is Russiagate version 3.0 or 10.0 or 25.0 because they only got one play in their playbook and they keep running it over and over and again. But you did a great job of making the point about government disinformation. When they came out and had 51 intel agents, when this was done at the behest of Antony Blinken, of people at the CIA, which we know for a fact happened, and they come out and they lie, and they use things they know were lies because they'd had the laptop for a year and they knew it was real, and then they use that as a pretext for censoring people they don't like. That is true disinformation. That is truly malevolent, and that wasn't coming from Moscow or Beijing. That was coming from Washington, D.C., from our own government, which didn't care that it was lying, didn't care that it was deceiving, and didn't care that it was breaking the law against its own people because all it cared about was attaining power. That is criminal. So honestly, I don't want to hear another dang word about Russia or Putin or foreign misinformation. I want the corrupt, illegal meddling from our own corrupt crooks in government in this country to stop.
Yeah. And this indictment, I read through it yesterday and I noticed one glaring omission: deliverables. I didn't see anywhere that any of the influencers they were accusing of doing Russians' work had produced anything at all. They just kind of waved their hand in the air and they said Russian disinformation is afoot. But nobody told me how Tim Pool advanced it. Nobody told me how Benny Johnson advanced it. The indictment doesn't even begin to try and tell you that. Don't you think that's suspicious, Sean?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's such a dirty smear job that was done by the government against them. They have no evidence that they knew anything at all. And then they have no evidence that they produced anything based on this knowledge that they didn't have. Like Tim and Benny were total victims. They didn't know any of this was going on. And then somehow their names are now getting drugged through the mud because they happen to be popular, influential people on the right with big podcasts and big audience. It's the kind of thing that if a prosecutor were doing normally and somebody actually had an opportunity to defend themselves, would get the prosecution sanctioned.
Yeah.
And yet here we're just supposed to look at it and think it's okay. I think it's unconscionable what they did to Benny and Tim. Those guys did nothing wrong, and now they're getting their names drugged through the mud
Yes.
as Russian agents when there's no evidence they did anything wrong.
It's what Nancy
Ever.
Pelosi calls the wrap-up smear. You just diminish them and leave in the eyes of the public that they're not allowed as to be a part of the public debate anymore, and that there's something bad about them, which is an awful thing to do. It really is. How much do you read into the fact that they did a huge press conference yesterday to announce all of this? So we've just thoroughly gutted the idea that this has any sort of legitimacy. So they announced it with a huge press conference. They get the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, the FBI Director, Chris Wray. They're all intoning how serious this is and how they just saved America. But I noticed that the FBI has all sorts of announcements on its website that aren't usually accompanied by big flashy press conferences. What did you think of that?
It showed us that an op was afoot, and I find it fascinating that a bunch of gangsters in government who have spent the last 2 to 3 years trying to put their political opponent in prison, trying to bankrupt him, raiding his home. We had the FBI director, after Donald Trump was nearly killed and shot in the head because of the incompetence of our FBI and Secret Service, went before Congress and raised the suggestion, gave oxygen to the completely deranged conspiracy theory that Trump was never shot, but now he's going to show up at a press conference and complain about Russia. I mean, these people are gangsters and they should be all in prison. And I will tell you, my reaction whenever I see these people on TV is to assume, oh, they're just lying. They're all liars. They're all crooks. I honestly don't care what they have to say about anything because I know their track record and I know their motives and I've seen how corrupt they are.
Is it your impression, Sean Davis, that more people are aware of this game now? I feel like the half-life on these stories is very tiny now. Like that the way especially conservatives are responding is bullcrap. Like instantly, bullcrap. I know it. I know it in my heart. And then you read it and you're like, yep, you're vindicated. It feels like the shelf life on these frauds, these hoaxes, is very short.
It is, and it's really interesting to me, not just to see the reaction of normal people or people online who get it, but usually the trailing indicator of how Republicans in Washington react, because they're usually dumber and slower than everyone else. And 6 or 8 years ago, you would have seen Manu Raju at CNN going around sticking a microphone in Mitt Romney's face, and then Mitt Romney or Jeff Flake groveling about how serious these accusations are and they're so disturbing. We didn't even see the dumbest and most milquetoast of Republicans getting conned by this, which I think is really interesting and an indicator of how ineffective these hoaxes are becoming since they're doing them so often.
And I just also want to add one other piece here to what you just said. Your colleague, the editor-in-chief at The Federalist, Molly Hemingway, she had this to say yesterday on Special Report, which is not a small deal. It's like she's on the final panel on Special Report. A lot of these establishment Republicans you're talking about, they watch this. And Molly was clear as she gave the final word on this subject yesterday.
Is striking, and all of it is disconcerting that foreign governments would try to meddle in our U.S. elections. What's particularly problematic, though, is our Department of Justice and FBI are the least credible people to talk about this, given the information operations they ran against the American people with their Russia collusion hoax, with their cover-up of the Hunter Biden laptop in which they lied about the situation and claimed that it was Russian disinformation and used that to censor American speech, even the first impeachment. The Department of Justice and FBI, there are consequences for those information ops they ran against the American people, and we do need protection from some of these foreign governments meddling in our elections, but we also need protection from our Department of Justice, FBI, and other intelligence agencies who are doing the same.
An excellent summary of what's going on here, which is like, okay, please, we're going to believe these guys? They're the ones who are running ops on us.
She's so correct, and I'm so glad she was able to say that last night. It's interesting if you look at history, if you look at the kinds of things that America uses as indications of authoritarian or tyrannical regimes, it's censorship, it's trying to imprison their political opponents, it's trying to throw people off the ballot. If another country were doing the things that our own government has been doing to us for the last 4 years, we would have people demanding regime change because that type of authoritarian tyranny can't be allowed to stand. And so I would just say, I don't want Russia or Iran or China involved in our nonsense in our elections, but I really would like our own government to stop running ops against us. And I will start caring a lot more about what people 7,000 miles are doing when our own government, which is 20 miles away, stops this nonsense.
Yeah, stop hurting us and get back on our side. Those are the first steps. Sean Davis, thank you very much from The Federalist. Always so good to talk to you, sir. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Frank calling in from Ashburn, line 1. Hello, Frank. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. How you doing? Thank you for all your good work and loving America.
Yes, sir. You too. Thank you.
Just to think about all these disingenuous things that are coming out, like the Russian collusion. There needs to be legislation and laws written that when somebody's coming out with all these false allegations, that these people need to be held to account. And, I mean, just go look at what that judge did to Trump in New York. I mean, never has there been any jurisdiction like that. These people need to be held account by law because what they're doing is totally, you can't scream fire in a theater, right? You can't be doing this either to the public.
Well, on the fire in a theater thing, that's a misunderstood decision, broadly misunderstood. It turns out you actually can. It's protected by the First Amendment. But what you're talking about, though, people who abuse their power, who defraud the public, you're clearly right. There have to be laws already on the books that address these abuses of power, and people should be held accountable. And at the very least, should be held accountable by the voters. If the criminal law can't reach them, the electoral governance of this country should reach them and kick them out, get them out of there, get rid of their stupid pensions, just everything you can do to try and right the ship. I completely agree with you, Frank.
It's all a big grift now. That's all it is. It's disgusting.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, and it's an abuse of power to advance the interests of a political party, and by lying to us constantly. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you on that. Let's see. I've got Rick calling in from Reston now, line 3. Rick, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Callahan Show.
Hey, Vince. Great show as always. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
A few moments ago, you made a comment about how it's possibly kind of unseemly for the federal government to be getting in the business of stifling anybody's speech, whether they're a foreigner or whether they're an American. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to add a little bit to that. I'm a former practicing attorney, and then a lot of years here in the swamp doing things that were very adjacent to covert influence. Between the First Amendment, which applies to foreigners who are on our soil, and the Internet,
mm-hmm.
we are very vulnerable to people throwing bad information. Magazine or, the Star that you would see in the grocery stores, back in the day or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It's bad information. You can't shut that down. And if we try to shut it down, we can't do it without seriously compromising the liberties that we've come to, obviously, to take for granted.
Yes.
And I just think it's a very valid point. It's a little bit nuanced. It's not a partisan thing. It's not a flamethrower, bomb thrower thing. But people need to understand that, and they need to expect their government to allow information to flow freely. And it's a caveat emptor situation.
Yes, liberty comes with responsibility, and that's on the people. And, Ben Franklin's quote rattles around in my head as you say that. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, he said. Be careful when you give up your liberties. Chances are you're not getting them back. So, yes, the risks do come with free speech. I prefer free speech. I know you do too, Rick. Thank you. I really appreciate the call. All right, Susan Crabtree will break down all the latest Secret Service scandals coming up and your calls.